Well, Jim, our next question, sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Rob Schwartz. What are the most unusual items you've seen thrown by fans at wrestlers?
I made a list a couple of years ago for that Dark Side of the Ring, the Tales from the Territories series that they branched off on. I mean, I just speaking for myself, shoes, Vaseline jars, batteries. I mentioned that I've been vomited on before. I don't know whether it was thrown like from the guy's hand in some kind of container or just came directly from the source. You've seen literally again everything at one point or another I have seen that's been sold at a wrestling match or is in the environment has been thrown. I've got a picture that I took at the Gardens of Jerry Lawler getting heat on Ken Lucas, and there's blood dripping off of both of them. And right coming down right toward Lawler's head, somebody had thrown a big 16-ounce soft drink cup. And since my shutter speed was so quick, I caught it. You could read Louisville Gardens on the side of the cup right before it hits his head.
Oh, man.
That's why they had to quit years ago for wrestling matches, and really all sporting events, but wrestling matches. Nobody sells a drink in a glass bottle anymore, but they used to. You go back in the 40s and 50s and you see accounts of wrestling matches where talent and or spectators were laid open or sent to the hospital by somebody throwing a beer bottle that they bought in the building. In Boston one time, well, not one time, but at one period, they literally put like some kind of fishing net over the ring because the people were throwing so much shit, the net would catch it before it landed in the ring and bean somebody. And that's where they put in the cattle chute at the old Boston Garden for the guys to go to the ring after the guy jumped in the ring and stabbed Blackjack Mulligan for 200 stitches worth when he was wrestling Pedro Morales. So, I mean, anything that could be pulled out of a woman's purse, you know, perfume, anything they think that have pickles. I've seen people throw fucking pickles. They threw tennis balls at me at the Midnight Express in Boone, North Carolina one. And it was a planned thing at the college up there because it wasn't like 2 or 3 people threw 2 or 3 balls. It was literally, they'd bought dozens and dozens and they were raining. But yeah, a woman threw her shoe at me one night. I picked it up and threw it under the fucking ring. She had to limp out one-footed. Seriously, but they lose control of themselves.
Although not thrown by a fan, I guess the craziest thing a wrestler threw was a woman in a wheelchair.
Yes, Bruiser in Cincinnati threw a wheelchair at another fan that was attacking him. And as the story goes, there was a woman sitting in it at the time. There was a lawsuit over that. It was like 1961 or whatever at the Cincinnati Gardens. Can you see Bruiser telling Barnett go, Dick, what in the world? Well, I didn't see her there. I just picked up the chair.
See, like when you hear about these old riots, I just wish I had a seat in the balcony to just sit there and watch like the tornado happen around. It must have been amazing to watch it.
Being in the middle of them was not any fun at all, and you couldn't even get a good view. You were in the eye of the storm. But I was in Atlanta in the Omni when they turned on Dusty in the Cage in 1980, and thankfully I was sitting up in the seats, and that was an item to behold. With all the cops outside trying to keep all those people back, and the people trying to get up on the cage, and they couldn't tell which ones were the boys that had run out to make the save and which ones were the fans that were trying to make the save for real. And there was a bunch of them, and the Louisville stuff, you know, it was nice to sit back and watch, but you didn't want to be in the middle of it. But they would throw anything that way, including chairs, as we've seen from the Cleveland riot footage and ECW, and but in more vintage fashion.
ECW was more playful.
All the time.
It wasn't about heat or anything. It was just like, hey, let's all throw chairs, and who cares if anyone gets hurt?
It was also the wrestler asked, it was Terry Funk, said, give me a chair, and they gave him 200. But no, back when they were throwing chairs in the ring because they were mad and you didn't want the chairs in the ring, that was a little more disturbing. But they'd throw anything that you could have in a woman's purse, in a man's pocket, that wasn't nailed down. That was the Beckley lawsuit that we had, where whoever it was that threw an entire 4-foot wooden arrow-shaped owl marker, section D, in like a fucking spear, like a javelin. And there was I stood up one time on the ropes when we got introduced, and somebody threw a balled up cup of ice, hit me right on the head of the dick. Dick Murdoch one night was in the ring, was supposed to get drop kicked in the back and take a bump over the top rope. Somebody threw a big cup of ice, hit him in the back. He took a bump over the top from the cup of ice.
I don't know why, but the beginning of the Coliseum home video, like the original series of WWF videos, they had like a montage to that song. And they had, I think, Tito Santana had, Mike Rotunda had Iron Sheik or Nikolai Volkov in an airplane spin. Dick Kroll, the giant referee, standing there. The clip they show, someone pegs him in the head with something. So for the second you see the airplane spin, you see the ball bounce off Dick Kroll's head.
But yeah, that was an occupational hazard. It fruit or nuts or, again, pickles. Pickles was because they're they used to sell the pickles on a stick back in the old days in the arena. The old pickle on a stick. Yes, down south they did.